In a recent video, I asked the question of whether or not Prusa controls the Voron project. And I didn't really mention in that video, but there's kind of another key aspect to the question. That's the fact that both Voron and Prusa love to tout this community surrounding them. And I've previously shown community leaders, self-described, associated with Prusa and Make Magazine. So it seems like there's a common core of people who are influencing both Prusa and Voron, and that is evidenced also in the narrative that surrounds both projects. There's a sort of vitriolic, acerbic, or toxic community aspect. Now, that's not saying that everybody's like that, and if you have problems with your Voron, I'm sure that people are wonderfully helpful, and if you are a member of their team or their community, I'm sure that you are welcomed with open arms, and it's nothing but niceness there. But I don't necessarily think I'm part of that community. I've never built a Voron for the simple reason that I have many 3D printers already and many unfinished 3D printer related projects to do. And we all know that building a Voron takes a lot of time. So I just have not found a good reason to make it a priority, especially given the fact that there's nothing I can add to the conversation. So if I did build a Voron, it would pretty much be for the only reason that I'm trying to jump on the popularity bandwagon and get some views for my channel, which has never been my MO. So I think that the Voron project is pretty fantastic. I really do like it. It seems like there's a lot of intelligence behind it and a lot of hard work to really polish it up and make it into a solid thing. So if you build a Voron, I don't think you're going to be upset with the result of your work. I think it's going to be a really fantastic project for the vast majority of 3D printer enthusiasts to embark upon. So please don't let me stop you from building a Voron, even though I'm probably not going to build one myself. But I want to talk about this comment here from Bad Noob, which is a pretty appropriate username, I would say. And he sort of embodies the toxic nature of what I was getting at. I said nothing bad. I've never said anything bad about Voron or what's his name, Nero 3D. I have no criticisms other than the apron, which is pretty stupid to wear an apron to work on 3D printers. But there's no criticisms here. I think it's a great project, and yet Bad Noob clearly, if you read the tone of this email, wants me to be the enemy. He wants somebody to go to battle and champion in the Voron against all enemies, foreign and domestic, or something like that. It's pretty ridiculous. But the subtext to his comment is what I want to talk about here, because he's assuming that I'm talking bad about Voron, which I'm not, and he's saying that Voron's popularity is not attributable to Prusa's involvement, but is instead attributable to Tom Sandlotter's and CNC Kitchen's videos about the subject. And those two guys, in case you don't know, and what kind of a rock do you live under where you're watching my channel and not theirs, but they're the German engineers, as it were, of 3D printing. And we all know how fantastically capable German engineers are. So these two men are to be very respected, and I have all the respect for them. I really do love every video that these guys make. The problem is that every video that they make seems to have a subtext of Prusa, just like Bad Noob's comment. It all comes back to Prusa. Why is Prusa seemingly the backbone upon which all of 3D printing on the internet is based? We had MakerBot before Prusa. MakerBot was the thing. How did MakerBot suddenly just disappear from the internet? Yes, it's still a company that just combined with Ultimaker. But how did it just disappear and stop being talked about just overnight? And how come Prusa became the backbone when it was not even a company that was really around at the time when MakerBot was in its ascendancy and MakerBot was doing really well? It doesn't make sense to me why Prusa became this thing that we just can't get beyond. So here we have CNC Kitchen's video talking about the transparent FDM prints, and you can see he's using Prusa Slicer on a Prusa i3 Mark III, and yet he has one of the printers that everybody wants, the darling of the ball right now, which is the Bamboo Labs X1. Just a fantastic printer. Looks like it's going to give the Prusa XL a run for its money, very possibly beating the Prusa XL, except we don't even have a Prusa XL to compare it to yet. That printer does not exist. It's just an ephemeral promise by Prusa that it's coming. So in your hands, tangible, better than the forthcoming Prusa, and yet you're choosing to make your videos based on the Prusa i3 Mark III, which is a printer from 3 or 4 years ago. Would you be carrying a phone in your pocket from 4 years ago? Or are you running a printer from 4 years ago? And not only that, using Prusa Slicer and talking about, Printables by Prusa, by Joseph Prusa. But here's the kicker. The video was sponsored by Squarespace. If you didn't know better, you'd think you were watching paid advertising for Prusa. So why does Stefan always use a Prusa i3 Mark III to do all of these tests when there's no argument to be made anymore that that's the best printer out there? He has the Bamboo Labs X1 in his possession. Why wouldn't he use the best printer? It just doesn't make sense. In Stefan's recent Voron video, talking about the Voron 2.4, he 3D printed all of the parts for the Voron on his Prusa i3 Mark III. Again, why? You have a Bamboo Labs X1, which could make those prints happen so much faster. Why wouldn't you save the time and still get the same quality? It's just, again, it doesn't make sense. The other German engineer, now I have all the respect for these guys. I watch every one of their videos with like bated breath. I'm just like, oh, I can't wait. I'm so excited to get the knowledge from these guys. But why does Tom also feature Prusa the whole time in a video about a technology developed by Cura?
Arachne was originally developed by Ultimaker for Cura, and it's been in there for a while, but thanks to Cura being open source, it's also going to be in Prusa Slicer.
Less than 10 seconds of acknowledgement in a 15-minute and 31-second video. For 10 seconds, he says, these guys made this, but now Prusa Slicer. The fact that he features Prusa the whole time and talks about Prusa Slicer the whole time, it's an advertisement for Prusa. Again, why is Prusa the backbone for his channel? Why is he not using Cura? It doesn't make sense. Are these guys being paid by Prusa to feature Prusa's printers in every video? And if so, why aren't they telling us that that's what's happening? I love the knowledge that they share, but this fixation, obsession with Prusa everywhere doesn't make sense. Let's try to explain it. Tom hates Ultimaker. Something happened between him and Ultimaker at some, maker fair somewhere that we're not aware of, and he's got a vendetta against them, and he's willing to begrudgingly acknowledge that they made something, but he wants to feature his favorite slicer. Why not use Super Slicer? Okay, there it is. Arachne from Ultimaker available in Super Slicer. Super Slicer here on GitHub. You can see it's made by a game named Super Meryl or Meryl, and you can go find him on Reddit. I tried to figure out who this is. I can't really figure out who this is, but if you look, you can donate to him. You can help Super Slicer become an even better slicer than Prusa Slicer. And here in the GitHub about Super Slicer, you can see that Super Slicer is based on Prusa Slicer, which is based on Slick 3R, which was created by Alessandro Ranucci. Now, I have received other comments. Maybe I'll flash them on the screen here if I can find them. But basically, guys wanting to tell me that Prusa Slicer is the greatest, and Prusa acknowledged Alessandro, so Prusa's not trying to take credit for things that they didn't do or he didn't do. See, he's crediting Alessandro. Well, do you guys know Alessandro is a massive heavyweight? This is the guy who's the head of open source and community at Arduino. He's also the head of open source at the Italian government. This is not a guy who you can just cut out of the picture and pretend like his invention is your invention, because that's what Prusa does to everybody else. But this guy's too big. You can't do it to him. But you don't have to use Super Slicer. You can use Ultimaker Cura, which is the company Ultimaker and their product Cura, which is a free open source slicer. And these are the people who originally gave us the technology. This is the one who Tom should have been spending 15 minutes talking about, showing Cura instead of Prusa Slicer. Of course, Ultimaker is now a merger of MakerBot, which was the original inexpensive 3D printer for the masses, was MakerBot. Yes, they sold out. They went to, Stratasys for a while. Now they're under Ultimaker. Ultimaker. MakerBot. These are both maker community-driven projects. They just are not trying to go for the $1,000 printer market. They're trying to go for the $10,000 printer market. So if you've got a little more to spend, they make a very compelling product, and they're releasing their stuff open source as well. There's no reason why we should all love Prusa so intensely and not give these guys the credit they deserve for adding to the technology. Speaking of not giving credit, if you go looking on the Prusa XL release video where they're announcing you can give them money for the privilege to wait in line for years before you even get your Prusa XL, if you watch that video, you will see that one of the features that they're claiming as this fantastic new technology that nobody's ever had before is jam detection using the load cell. So to clarify what this is, there's a digital scale basically built into the nozzle. So that's how you can touch the nozzle off the bed, and the nozzle knows when it's touching the bed because that digital scale has a reading all of a sudden. But you can also use that digital scale to determine when the nozzle is jammed, because the extruder is going to still try to push filament through the nozzle, which will push the nozzle down, even though because the nozzle is jammed. So something has to move, and the nozzle will move. I mean, microscopically, but the load cell can sense that, and then it knows that there's a jam. What an incredibly smart innovation. I'm really a big fan of that, and I thought it was I was like, wow, when I saw that despite my criticisms of Prusa, I had to acknowledge that was just a fantastic idea. And then a user or a watcher of my videos provided me with this link, and I'm going to play this here, but it's in Italian, and the subtitles are pretty bad. So let's get the idea here.
Siamo con Ruber di 3D PRN e ci spiegherà sostanzialmente come funziona il loro sistema di rilevazione con cella di carico, che avrete tanto sentito parlare per via delle Prusa che hanno presentato l'altro giorno, ma in realtà loro l'hanno presentato prima di Prusa.
Okay, so basically I'll provide a link to this video in the description, but he's basically saying, here's a guy with 3D PRN who's going to tell us how their jam detection works using a load cell. And he says, you may have already heard about this because Prusa the other day presented it in their video, but 3D PRN has a patent. I guess it's an Italian patent, but they have a patent on the technology, and patents are not evil, you guys. I know you hear those words and you want to be like, boo, hiss, let 3D PRN die, but that's not the way you should be thinking of it. Patents protect the little creators that Joseph Prusa is trying to swallow up. Without this patent, we may never have ever heard of 3D PRN because Prusa would get all the credit for this innovation. So here's just one more example in the long chain. It's absolutely the rule that Prusa will take your technology and put his name on it and sell it as if he's the genius that came up with it. But even the idea of using a load cell for nozzle detection on the bed for bed leveling, that's not Prusa's either. Here is the smart effector where I first saw the load cell technology being used for nozzle detection on the bed, developed again by Duet 3D and not Prusa. But let's go back to the comment from Bad Noob where he states unequivocally that he thinks the reason Voron printers are so popular is because of Stefan and Tom. These two German engineers who are so talented. Here these guys are, the power players in the whole hobby, and they constantly feed us Prusa. So my question is, why? Now, I don't like to think the worst of people, despite how you guys all want to paint me. I'm a pretty agreeable person who likes to look at the goodness in life. So I don't think that Tom and Stefan have ulterior motives. I don't actually think they're being paid by Prusa unless they disclose that. They do get paid to go to trade shows by Prusa. They do get paid sometimes to make a sponsored video with a Prusa printer in it. But for the most part, I think they're just trying to ride the wave of popularity. Being, shrewd businessmen, they know how to appeal to their audience and be likable. And putting Prusa, people like Prusa, they've seen Prusa before, it makes them feel comfortable, and they're going to keep, that feels familiar, it feels nice, right? So they're probably just featuring Prusa to do that. But being as powerful as they are, it's a feedback loop. By featuring Prusa, you're making your audience feel comfortable with Prusa, so that when you feed them more Prusa, it just keeps you spun up and keeps you popular. So I'm thinking that they should do the right thing too, and cast an actual critical eye on Prusa. I know Prusa is next door, just across the border in Prague, not even too far away, probably like an hour or two drive from your house, Tom or Stefan. So countrymen almost, right? It might be a little bit of some cronyism. It just feels like your crew and you want to feed this to the world. But keep in mind that the vast majority of your audience lives in the United States. The vast majority of 3D printer consumers happen to be in the borders of my country. So why are you trying to force your countrymen upon the viewers that don't share your same sort of quasi-nationalistic pride. It doesn't make sense, and it should stop, because this is a company that doesn't have anything new to offer to us, and that doesn't really help good technology become viable. They're not creating it. They're cutting out the original creators. The people who actually made the value in the first place are suddenly finding themselves outcompeted, like 3D PRN. Right now, they can't come up with it. I mean, they've got the patent, but they're never going to be popular. In fact, if 3D PRN blocks Prusa from using this technology because they have a patent on it, you guys in this community are going to vilify 3D PRN. You're going to, get your pitchforks out and go after them as if they're the bad guy. But they're the ones that create it. They're the reason that Prusa has it on their printer. See, everybody thinks Prusa is so powerful that to get a meeting with the great Joseph Prusa, they're clamoring over each other to suck up to him, to get some of that Prusa magic, all those views that are associated with Prusa if you can feature their products in a positive light. And so I have no doubt that the 3D PRN team, maybe they had just submitted the patent application, and then they called up Prusa and they wanted to talk about Prusa and maybe license it, maybe get Prusa to pay them to use it on their printer. And instead, Prusa just tried to use it on his printer without, cutting them out, not realizing that they had patented or something like that. I mean, we don't know. That was all conjecture just now, but that's a very realistic thing that could have happened. I think that something similar to that has happened many times in the past, which is why Joseph has all of these fantastic innovations that get brought to him, because not only is he running an amazing company, but he's also having the time to just scour the internet for the most obscure little innovation in 3D printing in order to put it on his printer. Yeah, that's not happening. I think they're coming to him and just handing it to him on a silver platter. Here you go, Joseph. Go ahead and copy our ideas. But I've made this argument before. Just Prusa research, no good for the hobby. No good for the hobby. Let's let them compete fairly. Let them pay for their own advertising. Don't give them free advertising. Don't try to feed them to us on the back end like you've been doing. They don't deserve it. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.